Welcome back. We are continuing with day 19 of Sefer Chafetz Chaim. And the Chafetz Chaim is now going to talk about the command that Torah tells us to judge other Jews favorably. Many times, when we are, speaking or accepting Lashon Hara, not only are we transgressing all the other commandments that we enumerated, right? The basic, for example, prohibition of speaking Lashon Hara or accepting Lashon Hara, but many times, a person also transgresses the positive command of judging your fellow Jew favorably, because we view the information we receive or talk about in a negative light. As the Chafetz Chaim writes, "Ulefa'amim oved nami." At times, one who speaks or believes Lashon Hara also transgresses b'mitzvot aseh b'tzedek tishpot amitecha. The positive command of with righteousness you shall judge your fellow. This is in Sefer Vayikra, chapter 19, verse 15. Kigon, for example, Shera'a et chavero shediber o asa ma'aseh. If Reuven sees his fellow Shimon say something or do some action, v'yesh b'davar hazeh lishfatu letzad hatov u'letzad hazchut. And that can be interpreted in a favorable and meritorious light, or lefko, or the opposite, in a negative or dishonorable light. The law is as follows: Afilu im hu ish beinoni. If Shimon is merely an average Jew, and what does that mean? Who generally he doesn't sin, but sometimes does stumble and sin on occasion. And imtchayavu min haTorah b'mitzvat aseh chazo. We are obligated by the Torah with this positive commandment of, with righteousness you shall judge your fellow. Ledun oto lekav zchut, to judge him favorably. V'im ha'ish hu yireh Elokim. If, however, Shimon is a God-fearing Jew, nitchayevnu ledon oto lekav zchut, we are required to judge him favorably. Gam ki karov note yoter hadavar lechav chova milchav zchut. Even if the matter is more easily interpreted negatively and not favorably, right? If something that a God-fearing Jew did, it's more likely that you could be interpreted in a negative manner. Since he's a God-fearing Jew, you have to judge him favorably even in that case. However, the Chafetz Chaim will write that regarding a regular Jew who generally refrains from sinning but occasionally does stumble, what is the law? The law is that if it's the most likely that he did something negatively, right? He did sin, right? Most of the evidence shows that he did commit an avera. Then the law, right? The letter of the law is that you can judge him negatively, but you can only keep that information to yourself. You're not allowed to disparage him and go around telling other people that what he did was wrong. Right? You're allowed to believe to yourself. However, there are exceptions, as the Chafetz Chaim will enumerate, where you can tell someone, right, in the case of danger, or you're trying to help your person, but there are many exceptions, many requirements that one has to follow that, unless one knows them, it's better not to say anything. But that's the letter of the law. Above the law, it's better to judge even in that case favorably. So the person is a regular Jew who generally refrains from sin but does sometimes stumble, in that case, the letter of the law doesn't require you to judge him favorably, but it's better, midat hachasidut, to judge him favorably. And as the Chafetz Chaim says in his introduction, that this book is only containing the law. It's not saying, writing that you have to, not writing from the letter of, a chassid, a pious person. It's saying the letter of the law. But how the Chafetz Chaim does say that a pious person, it's better to judge him favorably in that case, even though it's above the letter of the law. Okay. But if he's a God-fearing Jew, then you're supposed to judge him favorably, even in a case where it's most likely that he did something wrong. Hence, if Reuben goes and disparages Levi before Shimon, Avud adibur hazeh shidiber, on account of this questionable thing that Levi said, in which Reuben had judged favorably, or maaseh azu she'asa, or on account of this questionable act that Levi did, in which Reuben had judged unfavorably, or mekabel, or if Shimon, who accepts these words, shenitchazek atzlo lengenut avud avur zeh sheshama alav, now looks at Levi negatively because of this account that he heard from Reuven about Shimon, lo dan ato ikav schut, and Shimon does not judge Levi favorably, oved b'mitzvah zu. In these cases, both Reuven and Shimon transgress this command of judging your fellow favorably, because the Torah enjoins us to give the person the benefit of the doubt. So that is that safe, and there is a lot to talk about in regards to this safe, to this command of judging your fellow favorably, that in truth it's just a perspective that I like to think about, that if you were in that person's shoes that you're judging right now, if you were in that same person's shoes, you were raised in the same exact way. You had the same influences that he or she had, the exact same way that they grew up. Everything that happened to them, if you experienced that and you were mamish in their shoes, then in that case you would also probably do that sin, and if not, you would probably do even something worse. So that's a very important perspective, at least in my opinion, that whenever you see someone doing something that doesn't seem, I'm so righteous and they're not, they're not doing but if you were in their shoes, you would probably do the same, if not worse. And then we also have to realize that we also have our own wrongdoings, and many of them, as the Chafetz Chaim said previously. And by the way, last thing, the Nachman of Breslov, he gets this from the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of Chassidus. When we see someone doing something, we are given the chance we're given the chance to judge him. And according to the letter of the law, right, as we said, there are cases where you can judge him unfavorably. But the Chassidus says that how you judge your fellow is the same way that God judges you. So if you judge a fellow, right, according to the letter of the law, if it's half and half, what they did could be interpreted or for the good or for the bad, right? You're obligated to the letter of the law to judge him favorably. If you don't, you transgress the command. However, if a person it's more inclined that a person did something wrong, then in that case, if we judge him negatively, then we have to realize that God will judge us the same way when we are in a similar situation. In fact, we are faced many, many times a day with chances with different opportunities of judging someone else. And through this judgment that we give others, we are in fact judging ourselves. We are giving the standard by which God should judge us. So that's why it's very, very important, even if it's not according to the letter of the law, to judge someone favorably, because this is how Hashem will judge us, and I'm telling you, we want to be judged positively, not negatively. Okay, anyways, the next seif. The Torah charges us to support one another financially. If as a result of one's unfavorable words the subject loses his livelihood, the speaker has violated this positive commandment. If through one's negative account, be it lashon hara or rechilut, ishpil et chavero sheibed amichayeto al yedei zeh, one debases his fellow to the extent that he loses livelihood, kigon sheipnei roa levavo. For example, if one, due to his mean-spiritedness, right, he's a mean person, pirsem et chavero sheino ish me'eman, Reuven publicized that his fellow Shimon is not trustworthy. However, Reuven can speak in a way that is permissible if it's leto'elet, if it's for the benefit. However, there are many different factors that one has to consider before even considering saying something. But Reuven, a mean person, says that Shimon is not trustworthy. Or imhu bal malacha, or if Shimon is a craftsman, pirsem alav she'eno ra'ui lemelacha hi. Reuven publicized that he is qualified for that type of work. Or chol kiyotziba, or the like. Oved gam ken al mitzvah aseh. Reuven violates the positive commandment shenemar ger v'tushav v'chayimach, as it is stated, a ger, a convert, a resident, and he shall live with you. This is Sefer Vayikra, chapter 25, verse 35. V'neimar v'chei achicha imach, and it is stated in the verse that follows, and your brother shall live with you. ונצטווינו בזה לחזיק ביד ישראל shemach. We have thus been commanded in this passage to assist a Jew who has become poor. וליתן לו מתנה או הלוויה, או הלוואה, by giving him a donation or a loan, או לעשות עמו שותפות, by entering into a business partnership with him, or by finding him work, so that his financial standing shall be strengthened with his effort, and so that he will not collapse and become dependent on people. Are we commanded not to speak, not to cause someone to lose his livelihood? Hence, if Reuven causes Shimon to lose his livelihood by speaking Lashon Hara about him, he has clearly transgressed this positive command, which enjoins us to help a fellow Jew find work, give him a donation, give him a loan. So, right, it's Kal v'chomer argument. And that is the end of today. Thank you very much for listening. We will continue B'ezrat Hashem tomorrow.